Welcome to Beyond the Compendium, where we'll cover the real lore behind the demons in the Megami Tensei series, far beyond what the Compendium entries ever tell you. As a grand opening for this series, we'll be covering 3 whole demons in today's episode: Leanan Sidhe, Ippon Datara, and Dai Sojo, as I teased in the announcement video. Leanan Sidhe's Compendium entry for Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey reads, "A beautiful fairy of Irish folklore, whose name means fairy mistress. She drains the life of her lovers in return for granting them artistic inspiration." But well, the thing with Leanan Sidhe is, the creature itself was entirely made up. While, yes, you could say that every creature from folklore was made up, the Leanan Sidhe, as a concept, isn't from any folklore. The Leanan Sidhe was something that only began to appear in stories in the early 1900s or so. The concept was proposed by a man named W.B. Yeats in a book called Fairy and Folk Tales of Ireland, in which he essentially made up the Leanan Sidhe on the spot. Quote, This spirit seeks the love of men. If they refuse, she is their slave. If they consent, they are hers, and can only escape by finding one to take their place. Her lovers waste away, for she lives on their life. Most of the Gaelic poets down to quite recent times have had a Leanan Sidhe, for she gives inspiration to her slaves and is indeed the Gaelic muse. This malignant fairy, her lovers, the Gaelic poets, died young. She grew restless and carried them away to other worlds. For death does not destroy her power. End quote. Essentially a sort of hybrid of the vampire and the succubus. Well, let's move on to how she is in the games. Leanan Sidhe usually shows up in the early to mid levels as the Femme race or as the Empress or Lover's Arcana for the Persona series. She's appeared in many games in her franchise, starting with Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner. Her design is a blonde floating woman with elf-like ears, which seems to fit the fairy mistress name, as well as the vampiric aspect of W.B. Yeats' work. She is seen holding something that looks perhaps like a dream catcher. I am not 100% sure on that one. As for her roles in the games themselves, there really isn't anything major, with her mostly remaining in side quests, most iconic of which likely being a Strange Journey, where a guy named Anthony sends you to find his perfect demon waifu, in which Leanan Sidhe the first one you were sent to find. Honestly, that about covers it for Leanan Sidhe, a recently made up creature, but an interesting story to tell nonetheless. Now let's move on to part 2 in this triple threat, the one-footed wall builder Ippon Datara himself. Ippon Datara's Compendium entry reads, "A monster with one eye and one lid, said to live in the mountains of Kumano, Japan. A single footprint measuring 30 centimeters has been sighted in the mountain snows." Like the Compendium states, Ippon Datara is a mountain yokai to Wakayama and Nara prefectures, though sightings have been spotted in plenty of the neighboring mountainous regions in Japan. It is generally more well known in the area stated above. Ippon Datara is described in folklore as having one stumpy leg and one cyclops-like eye in the center of his head. It moves around by either hopping or actually just doing somersaults around in the snow. While Ippon Datara is generally shy and harmless, staying away from inhabited areas and usually only being noticed due to the giant single footprints, he lives in the snow during the winter days. On the day of December 20th every year, he becomes violent, killing any human it sees by stomping it with his foot. The name Ippon Datara comes from Tatara, of the bellows a blacksmith used in the past. It is sometimes said that Ippon Datara resembles an old blacksmith who lost an eye and a leg. Well, actually, there are many interpretations of Ippon Datara, like how it could be the ghost of a famous one-eye, one-leg robber named Hitotsu Datara, who lived in the mountains and had supernatural strength. It has been stated that Ippon Datara could even be a sort of corrupted mountain god. The Megami Tensei interpretation of Ippon Datara seems to follow the blacksmith motif. Speaking of which, let's cover how Ippon Datara is in the game. Ippon Datara is a humanoid creature that wears a mask with only one eye hole from to see from. He carries a hammer and tongs, very standard tools for a blacksmith to have. He's covered in metallic objects, which he could have created himself, you know, the whole blacksmith thing. And of course, has one leg that he hops around on. In-game, he's generally seen around the late 20s in terms of level, and generally learns physical, fire, and dark attacks. Like Leanan Sidhe, he doesn't really have any major roles. I suppose the most memorable roles would be in the Raido games, where in the Solus army he used to break down a wall, and in King Abaddon he wears a maid outfit and gives you certain information. Now we've been moving on to part 3. Daisojo, one of the fiends. Daisojo is one of the fiends of the series. The fiends are reoccurring boss-type demons, usually known for their difficulty, though Daisojo seems to have appeared the least out of all of them, only appearing in SMT 1 and 3 and in the Persona series. The Compendium entry for Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne reads, "A monk who died while fasting for the sake of the people. Because of his spiritual power, his body continues to exist without rotting. It is said he will appear in front of the people on the day of salvation." Daisojo isn't specifically based on a single being or deity, but rather multiple Buddhist concepts melded into one. His design is based on a form of self-mummification known as Sokushinbutsu, in which a monk would essentially mummify themselves alive by eating an extremely strict diet and eventually ceasing to eat or drink at all, ridding all the fat from their bodies and dehydrating themselves, shrinking their organs. The monks would die in a state of basically meditation while chanting the Nimbutsu, a mantra about Buddha, and the body would become naturally preserved as a mummy with skin and teeth intact without decay and without the need of any artificial preservatives. Many Buddhist Sokushinbutsu mummies have been found in northern Japan and estimated to be centuries old, while texts suggest that hundreds of these cases are buried in stupas and mountains in Japan. These mummies have been revered and venerated by the lay people of Buddhism. It is believed that many hundreds of monks tried, but only 24 such mummifications have been discovered to date. There's a common suggestion that the Shingon school founder Kukai brought the practice from Tang, China as a part of secret tantric practices he learned, and that were later lost in China. Daisojo's most important role in the series has to be his role in Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, where it's required to be fought for the true demon ending. Daisojo is an extremely valuable demon to have in your party, with many buffs and debuffs, and a move that drains both MP and HP from an enemy, as well as other powerful attacks. And with that, I think I've said enough about our demons featured here today. I hope you enjoyed my first attempt at this kind of video. I've had a lot of trouble recording the audio because of where I live. As you can hear the car behind me. If you have something that you'd like me to improve on, which would probably be the poor background noise, I'll work on that, don't worry, but I gotta get this video out sometime. Anything else, please post it in the comments below. I'll read it. Also, the Persona 3 video is still being worked on. I've just been distracted a lot recently by games. My next video will deviate from the Megami Tensei side of things, as I talk about one of my favorite Western role-playing games, The Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall. Or maybe I won't, maybe I still do the Megami Tensei stuff. The next demon video will be of Mastema.